Hello everyone, back to you in today's video. Going to have a look at the weather next week's 10 days. In today's video, this will take us to around the 13th of July, so we're heading up towards the middle part of the month with this update. We'll start off looking at June's central temperature. We've had that updated from Hadley. It has been a very warm month indeed. We've got more warm weather coming up later this week as well. It might turn a little bit thundery as well, so we might be updating Stormwatch later in the week, but more on that shortly. We'll start off with the central England temperature for June, which has just been updated, or was updated over the weekend. So for June 2017, the CET came out at 16.0, an anomaly of 1.9 degrees, so nearly 2 degrees above average. Of course, that follows on from May, which again came out around 2 degrees above average, and going back to March, that came out at 3 degrees above average. In between, April was a little bit closer to average at 1 degree above average, and we've got July's number in so far as well, only provisional to the second though. It comes out at 17.0 for the first 2 days of July 2017. That's around 1.5 degrees above average. I would suspect that's going to tick up a bit over the coming few days. Now, we can actually see when the last time was that we had a June that was as warm or warmer than June 2017. This is the full list of monthly and yearly CETs going right way back to 1659. The central temperature is the longest running temperature series anywhere in the world. As I say, it goes right way back to 1659, although obviously the stations have updated in terms of where the observations are taken, so you can't really make a comparison between sort of now and 1659, but it's still useful to get a rough idea of how things are going. So June's central temperature has been added to the index, so there's 2017 just there. There's June's number coming out at 16.0. So when was the last time we had a June that was as warm as this? Well, probably 2006, that year just there, which came out with a central temperature in June of 15.9. So we actually beat June 2006 by just 0.1 of a degree. To find a June that was warmer than this particular June, we have to go back to 2003, quite a long time ago now. The very hot summer of 2003 came out with a June central England temperature of 16.1, so 0.1 of a degree warmer than June 2017. Really, these three Junes, 2017, 2006, 2003, are all on a par with each other, just like a point of a degree difference with all of these Junes. So to find a June that was substantially warmer than this June 2017, we have to go back quite a long way, actually, quite a long time. We scroll right way back to 1976, which comes out with a June central temperature of 17.0. That was a very hot June, associated, of course, with the incredibly hot summer and dry summer, drought summer of 1976. But that is not the hottest June on record. It may surprise you to know that despite all the warming that's been going on over the past few decades, the hottest June on record is a very, very long time ago. We have to go right way back into the 1800s. We go back into the Victorian era, up the list we go, and eventually we arrive at 1846. That is the hottest June on record, coming out with a central temperature of 18.2 degrees. Absolutely phenomenal temperature, over a degree hotter than June 1976. Incredible, incredibly hot June, that one. And interestingly, the other two months, July and August of that summer, 1846, weren't much to write home about, just CETs into the 16th, which is quite warm, but nothing as hot as we have in the June of 1846. And actually, there is another June within the CET index that goes into the 18s Celsius mark, and that June we go back to 16 76. So we scroll right with that virtually to the start. We find 1676 just there, and that June has a central temperature of 18.0. So there have been hotter Junes than 1976, perhaps a little bit surprisingly, and they were a very, very long time ago. It just goes to show you how potentially hot June can get. You don't really associate it as being as hot as July and August, but in the right circumstance, in the right situation, it can be every bit as hot in June as it is in July and in August as well. Coming back to this year, of course, we are already off to a very warm start for July 2017, as I say, at 17.0, around 1.5 degrees above average, just for the first couple of days. We'll, of course, keep an eye on things and see where everything goes over the next few days. The UK-wide temperatures haven't yet been updated, by the way, from Hadley. So that's just for the central England region. We're waiting for the UK-wide June temperature and precipitation anomalies to come in. Right, been off on a bit of a tangent with that, so let's travel through the weather for the next week to 10 days. We're going to start off with the 500 millibar height anomaly flowcharts from the Penn State University. We've got the east end of the Earth here on the top, and the GFS is on the bottom. 500 millibars, 80,000 feet is an area in the absolute high pressure, low pressure being drowned by the jet stream. On these charts, blue extrapolates to low pressure, and the brighter colours, oranges, yellows, extrapolate to high pressure. East end of the Earth has low pressure, below average heights to the north. We've got above average heights to the south, and we're bringing the jet stream through rather like that. So it would be unsettled for the northern part of the country, less so down in the south because we're closer to this ridge. The GFS is very similar, in fact it's almost identical, with below average heights around Greenland, Iceland, above average heights through the central Atlantic, and we bring the jet stream through the Atlantic into Europe like that, particularly impacting the north. For the south, we're always closer to these ridges, which are bringing up warmer and drier conditions. These are the GFS temperature and precipitation ensembles next couple of weeks. The red line here is the 30-year upper air temperature average. Two sort of peaks in temperature being indicated here. So we're starting off around average right now, but the trend over the next week is to lift those temperatures up, becoming very warm, if not hot, down in the south by the end of the week, but probably associated with thunder. Then we get a cool down back close to average over the weekend into the start of next week, and then we've got another lift up in temperatures coming up later on next week, if the model is right. That's a long way off. It's going into the extended range of the model up to around the middle part of July. So obviously there's quite a bit of doubt about that. But certainly the idea there is that we get two sort of peaks in temperature, one at the end of this week and then one around the middle to last stages of next week. For precipitation, a lot of dry weather over the next few days. As we get through to the end of the week, with this peak in temperatures, we have got some rainfall spikes, so there might be some thunderstorms getting sparked off. However, you wouldn't look at that and say it's a particularly wet ensemble by any means. Bear in mind, that is the ensemble for London, so if you're looking at somewhere further north, let's say Manchester, then you will probably see a wetter scenario than that. Temperature anomalies for the next week. This taking us from the 3rd through to the 11th of July. They're coming out warmer than average for England and Wales. Still a little bit cooler than average for Scotland. Expect those to trend hotter over the coming few days. I think we'll see those temperature anomalies lifting up as we look at these throughout the week. Precipitation anomalies going from the 3rd through to the 11th of July. Well, a lot of variation actually within this. So some parts of the country, Northern Ireland, some of Scotland, Northern England, you're coming out a little bit wetter than average. Northern and Western Scotland, some parts of Eastern England coming out a bit drier than average, and Southern England is a little bit wetter than average as well. That regional variation is being caused by thunderstorms, which as ever are hit and miss, and some places might get a month's worth of rain within half an hour. Other places just down the road don't get any rain whatsoever, and that is the nature of summer rainfall, which does tend to be very hit and miss. So this is how the GFS is seeing things for Thursday. This is Thursday, 6th of July. We've got high pressure just to our east. Low pressure is across the Brest Peninsula in northern France. We're dragging up the air from a southerly southeasterly direction, which looks very warm. By Friday, we've got a thundery low developing there across northern France and into southern parts of England. So that does look potentially quite a lively sort of scenario. The upper air temperatures are very warm, if not hot. We're up to 15 Celsius and 850 HPA down in the south, and as we know from the last heat wave, sort of 15 Celsius will be enough to lift us up to around 30 degrees down across southern parts of the country into the mid-80s Fahrenheit. But look at that, there is precipitation there across many parts of the UK being forecast for Friday. And with the Cape lifted looking like this, you get the idea that those areas of precipitation could well be containing lightning and thunder. So we might get a very lively end to the week. Expect updates from Stormwatch later in the week as this gets closer. Let's hope it doesn't turn into another thundery letdown. Temperatures on Friday, there is a lot of energy available because the temperatures are approaching 30 degrees down in the south, so a lot of heat in the atmosphere to give the energy for thunder. Just have to wait and see whether that does actually come off. We go through to the weekend and we start to bring in some slightly cooler, fresher air from the north and the northwest, although still with a lot of influence from high pressure ridging through the country over the weekend. So it is going to be staying warm, I think, into the weekend with a lot of dry and fine conditions. We'll lose that thundery stuff. Humidity will probably lower, temperatures lowering by a few degrees as well, but still I would have thought temperatures there could easily be into the mid-20s Celsius going through next weekend. It's the start of next week. That extension from the Azores high continues to bring a lot of dry weather to many parts of the country. We have got quite an autumnal low up to the north around Greenland and Iceland. The 500 millibar height anomalies were picking up on this. Quite a deep low pressure around Greenland and Iceland at 970 millibars. That is fairly autumnal, but for us, actually, that's not having much impact. It does for northern Scotland, where it's wetter and windier, but for most parts of the UK, we're actually under this ridge, the extension from the Azores high into the early part of next week, keeping things mostly dry, fine, and warm. Through to the middle part of next week, that high pressure eventually starts to slip away to the east, and we start to bring hotter air back up from the south. So that's the second peaking temperatures that I was showing you on the with the GFS ensembles. Later next week, the temperatures might start to lift up again as winds go southerly, and it does actually turn really quite hot indeed on this particular run of the GFS for the latter stages of next week as we bring up the 20 Celsius isotherm into the UK. Now that used to be very unusual to see, the 20 Celsius isotherm. Very rare visitor, maybe once a decade, once every 15 years, something like that. You might see the 20 Celsius isotherm coming out of Spain. It seems as though these days it's a much more frequent visitor to the UK, particularly to the southern part of the UK. Now, this is a very, very long way off. It's 10 days away, so chances are the model is overdoing it, and in the end, chances are that 20 Celsius isotherm will finish up down somewhere across southern parts of France. By the way, notice how hot it is across southern France and down to Spain and Portugal with the 25 Celsius isotherm there getting into southern parts of France. But chances are all of this heat will be sort of downgraded as we get closer to the time frame. But as I say, the 20 Celsius isotherm is becoming a more frequent visitor to our shores at the moment, so you wouldn't totally rule out the chance that it might get to us. Temperatures, by the way, for southern France are being indicated there to be in the low 40s Celsius. That's over 100 Fahrenheit. For us, it's not as bad as that, but it is still very warm. As I say, there's a good chance the GFS is off on a tangent with that. It does look a bit over the top. The ECWF finally looks like this for Thursday, so we've got that thundery low moving up from the south. Going to be warm and potentially quite stormy end to the week. Watch out for Stormwatch later in the week. That all gets out of the way over the weekend. It turns a little bit cooler and fresher as well, but still with a lot of high pressure influences, so a lot of dry weather there through to the weekend, and quite warm but not as humid or oppressive as it will be at the end of the week. Early next week, what the ECWF wants to do next week is turn things more unsettled and cooler. So this is running up towards day 10 now, where we see we've got these winds coming in from the west northwesterly direction, albeit for the south still with a lot of influence from the Azores high. But if I show you the upper air temperatures on day 10, which is Thursday 13th of July, look how much cooler they are compared to the upper air temperatures that we see with the GFS. So they do finish up very much divergent in terms of where things end up by day 10, with the GFS looking very hot, probably over the top, and the ECMWF actually looking rather cool, albeit still with quite an influence from the Azores high. So I think they'll leave next week alone because it's quite uncertain there exactly how things play out through the course of next week. But in terms of this week, we're definitely warming up again. We're going to see the temperatures probably lifting up to around 30 degrees down in the south by the second half of the week, with an increasing risk of thunderstorms. All of that detail, of course, is to be determined. Over the weekend, a lot of dry weather and still warm, but not as oppressive as it will be at the end of the week. And then next week, do we get this second lift up in the temperatures, or is the ECMWF right till it turns a little bit cooler and more unsettled? We shall wait and see. Right, that's all for now. Come back tomorrow. Thanks for watching.